search begins.
Within 24 hours, he must tell the hunters the horrifying news of a lost pet. And he didn't know where they were. The Hunter family was on their way home from England. The children, Peter and Elizabeth, were very excited. They wanted to see their homes, their friends and of course their wonderful pets again. Every day, Elizabeth said to her mother, "I wish Dow hadn't forgotten about me." She had a special present from England for him. Peter wasn't worried about reuniting with Bodger. He knew the old terrier couldn't forget him, and her father was thrilled too. He wanted to see Lewis again and go hunting with him. In faraway Ontario, John Longridge returned from vacation to an empty house. He searched everywhere for animals. At home, in the garden, in the field. He called, but there was no answer. Mrs. Oakes didn't know where they were either. She showed Longridge the first page of his note and the second page of hers, which had been burnt. "I have only read the first page," said Mrs. Oakes. "I thought the animals were with you on Lake Heron." "No, the animals are gone," said Longridge sadly. "But they were happy here. Why did they leave? And why didn't anyone see her?" asked her wife. "Unfortunately, Oak, I don't know. I spoke with some of Bodger's friends at school. No kids saw dogs or cats the day I went on vacation. Police don't know." Longridge sat down at his desk. He read the letter again from Elizabeth. "I was looking forward to meeting Dow and the dogs. Within 24 hours, he must tell the hunters the horrifying news of a lost pet. And he didn't know where they were." He clutched his aching head with both hands and tried to think clearly. The animals didn't just disappear. Then he remembered Lewis from yesterday morning. His eyes. Something was different. He lifted his paw. Suddenly he understood. "Woman. Oakes," he cried. "I know what happened. I know where they went. Lewis brought her to her house. He brought them all to her house." Mrs. Oakes looked at him in silence for a moment. Then she said, "No. This is impossible. The hunter lives over 400 kilometers away from her and no one has seen her. There aren't many people across the countryside beyond Ironmouth Hill," Longridge said thoughtfully. "On an Ironmouth?" "Woman," Oakes said, "if you are right, there is no hope. There are bears and other wild animals there and nothing to eat." "Maybe a hunter or someone helped them," said Longridge, seeing Mrs. Oakes' sad face. "No, Mr. Longridge, that is not possible. A young dog could cross this country, and possibly a cat too. Cats can take care of themselves. But old Bodger, he couldn't run 6 miles. A dog as old as Bodger could not live more than a day or two in this wild land." And it is true, they both saw the darkness outside the window. "Yes, ma'am," Oakes said Longridge in a weary voice. "You almost said he left 3 weeks ago. I think our old friend Bodger is dead. So is Dow. Perhaps. Siamese cats don't like the cold. But a big, strong dog like Ruth might survive." "That Ruth," said Mrs. Oakes angrily. "Why did Bodger chase him to death? Why didn't Dow stop Lewis? Poor old Bodger." She hurried out of the room and closed the door. Longridge knew she was crying because of the animals. He immediately called the police. "The animals must be going home," he told him. Could you ask the locals to look for it?" Yes, of course, Mr. Longridge, replied the policeman. "Everyone will help, but nothing can be done until tomorrow morning." Longridge found a map of the area and drew a line between his small town and the hunter's town. The line passed through hills, forests and lakes, but not many cities. The last 70, 80 kilometers he looked very wild and dangerous. Looking at the map, Longridge became more and more hopeless. Why did I offer to take the animals with me when the hunters went to England? He thought to himself. Now they are dead because of me, and tomorrow Elizabeth and Peter will return. Later that night, the phone rang. Was a hunter in a place called Lintra. A Nurmi girl told Longridge she found a Siamese cat in the river about 2 weeks ago. But after a few days it disappeared again. "Thank you," said Longridge. "I'll call Rintra tomorrow and she'll try to talk to her child." "I have other news," said the man. "But I don't know if it helps. Old Jeremy Orvin came into town and said he had 3 visitors at his house. He has no visitors. Poor old man. Perhaps his visitors were animals rather than people. Longridge thanked the man, hung up, and looked at the map of Lintra. You go home, he thought. I was right. 2 weeks ago the cat was still alive. But what happened to the other two? Are you dead? That night he awoke in the dark, missing the touch of the warm body of an old terrier next to him in his bed. Bodger, you can take the bed when you come back, he thought. I will sleep on the floor.